Hi, welcome to my latest video. Today I'm going to start my roof rack makeover. So I have this roof rack or roof basket mounted on top of the Land Rover roof rail crossbars, and what I'd like to do is kit this roof rack out so that it's sort of expedition ready. So I'm going to fit amber strobes at the front and at the back, and some rear work lights. I'm going to wire all that in neatly, and I'm then going to put some jerry cans and the spare wheel, or the ability to put the spare wheel on here. It'll probably stay in the boot most of the time, but I want to be able to put the spare wheel on the roof rack. And I've also got a front runner black roof box that can go on there. Other things that I might try to attach onto the roof rack: my mud boards, Rhino orange mud boards, useful just in case it gets stuck. And I've also got a little spade. Okay, so it's a little sort of fiberglass handled steel digging spade, which maybe that could clip across the front or something like that, or on the side. I don't really know exactly what I'm going to end up with. I just know that I want the roof rack to look better. I used to have amber strobes down on the front in the grille. When I fitted the winch last summer, I needed to be able to reach in to get to the free spool handle that's in there, okay, to allow the winch to be pulled out, as opposed to actually driving it out on the motor, which is not really recommended. So because I need to reach in here, the strobes that were there were in the way. Okay, so I took the strobes off, I sprayed the grille black, and to start with I put the same strobes just up on each corner of the roof rack at the front, and then I fitted my rear cross member strobes here. Okay, so these are available on my website to buy if you want them. You do need to have the factory roof rails. This cross member here is part of these factory rails. These are the optional extra crossbars. Okay, so these you may still be able to buy them new. They come up on eBay second hand for about £50 to £100. So I've just got two of those, and then I've clamped the roof basket down to that, and that's all nice and solid. So I don't take this on and off. I leave it on the car. It's just too much trouble to try and undo it all. I've put extra nuts and things like that on here just to stop somebody stealing it, and because of that it's actually difficult for me to remove myself if I want to. So I used to have some different bars with sort of bike racks and things like that. It just became a bit of a hassle having to swap between the different roof racks, so I ditched the bike racks and just leave this one on all the time now. So if this is going to stay on all the time, then I could put the strobes on the roof rack. So get rid of these. Much as I like my own design of strobe there, they are a little bit sort of hidden away. On a normal Freelander 2 that hasn't got a roof basket, they're fine. Okay, they're a little low to the roof, but a vehicle from behind can see them. But if I've got these with work lights and spare wheels and ratchet straps and all sorts of things, these are just a little bit tucked away underneath. So I'd rather bring them out to here. Not only does that get them a bit higher up, but it just sort of brings them nearer to the back of the car so that they are visible by somebody closer to the back of the car. Okay, so these ones here, if you're sat in a car right behind, you may not be able to see them. Okay, so what have I been doing? Well, I've been buying lots of things on eBay as usual. I'm going to just turn my little light on just to get a bit more light. Okay, so these are the strobes that I've bought. Now these are really nice solid metal 4 LED. I think it's 4 times 3 watt LEDs, so 12 watts in total. I powered one up the other day. They're very, very bright. These are kind of like commercial grade strobes that they put on the front of bin lorries and things like that. Okay, but that's cool. They will do for me. I do need strobes because I do 4x4 response, and I need to sometimes sort of stop at the side of the road and make sure my vehicle is visible. So I'm going to be fitting some of those on now. I bought these on eBay from a seller called Brighter Lights. I'll put up a little thumbnail or a link or something now. They didn't come with these connectors, okay, so I've added these. These are actually Knightsbridge connectors. I'll put up a link to them. I bought these on Amazon. Okay, so the whole connector looks like that. Okay, so it's got a sort of cable gland at each end, and then in between it unscrews and you get there 3-pole. Now these are designed really for outdoor electrics, for garden lights and things like that, but they'll work perfectly well for me. The strobes actually have 4 wires coming out the back. Inside this cable there's actually 4. There's the black and red, which is the 0 and the 12 volts. There is a yellow wire, which is the mode selection wire. Okay, so I will sort of set them to a flashing mode and just leave that. I don't need to be able to change the mode after that. That's just not required. So the yellow wire has just been sort of cut off and terminated inside here, and then the 4th wire, which I have connected up through the 3rd pin on here, is a synchronization wire. So the synchronization wire allows you to connect several lights together, and then somehow they sort of synchronize each other, so sort of one flashes then the other flashes. Not quite sure what it will do if 4 lights all synchronize together. Maybe it'll just kind of go round and round, each one flashing one at a time. I'm not sure. I don't know. Maybe I just need to synchronize the front pair and then the back pair separately. Not sure. Well, I'll figure it all out. I've added these waterproof connectors here because all of the lights you buy on eBay seem to come with very, very short wires. I mean, these are, what is that? That's about sort of 30 centimeters long. Not too bad. These work lights that I bought here, I mean, it's a ridiculously short wire. Okay, so unless you've got a junction box close by, you're going to need to put a connector or something on to extend the cable. So these are the WOW LED spotlights. They're not spotlights, they're floodlights. Okay, so they're not super bright high wattage spotlights. I mean, you could put these on the front of the car if you wanted to, but they are actually designed to be work lights on the back. Okay, so they're not sort of narrow beam bright or main beam spots. These are I think they're 27 watt. It's not a huge amount of light output, but it's perfect for a floodlight at the back of the car. Okay, now the issue there, of course, is if I have work lights on the back and the boot's open, it's going to obscure the light. I mean, some might shine through the glass, I don't know, but it may be a problem there. It's more designed if I am doing recovery or trying to back up on a green lane or a dark country lane, and I just need a bit of extra light at the back. I might even somehow rig them up to the reverse lights, but what I really want is to put them on a separate switch. Okay, so an illuminated switch up here. So I've currently got my amber strobes and my roof light bar enabler switch. Okay, so if it's snowing or fog or something like that, I don't want the roof light bar on, then I can turn it off if I want to. And it also just kind of keeps police and MOT testers and anybody else who believes wrongly that the light bar needs to be on a separate switch. It doesn't. I've checked the regulations. I did a video on that, my light bar video. I looked at the lighting regulations, and the only real regulation is that it has to go off when you dip your lights. Nothing about a separate switch or anything like that. Okay, so anybody that tells you it needs that, they don't know what they're talking about. So that is UK rules, of course. Might vary in other countries. Okay, so do check your local regulations. So back to the roof rack. So these strobes here, the idea is that I will be putting these in this nice little sort of cutout bit here. Okay, so they will sort of sit quite neatly in like that. Okay, and I've already drilled a hole there through the bar. Now this is an aluminium roof rack. Okay, I went for the aluminium one rather than steel. I went for aluminium for lightweight, but also for corrosion reasons. So I don't have to worry sort of too much about drilling holes. That's if a bit of water gets in, it doesn't really matter. It's not going to rust out. So that will go there. There'll be another one on the other side, and then what I've done, I've drilled a couple of little holes there on the back of this panel, which you can just about see through there. You can just see the holes lighting up there. On the back of that panel, I will screw a little black plastic junction box. Okay, so I've bought a sort of a job lot of these plastic junction boxes, so that's what it looks like. It's got a lid as well, although the lid technically probably isn't really required. So that will sort of screw up onto the back of that kind of spoiler or whatever that bit is on the front of the roof rack, and then the two strobes will wire into this. Okay, there'll also be a wire that then goes round to another junction box on the back. I haven't quite figured out exactly where that's going to go yet, although it'll probably, rather than put it here between the bars, which is a bit of a tight fit, I'll probably put it sort of like that there, because I want to try and keep these bars completely clear. Okay, I don't really want any sort of junction boxes or cables tied to them or anything like that. I want to keep them completely clear, because they are going to have things put on top of them and potentially bolted down sort of to them, like clamped down to them, like spare wheels, jerry cans, things like that. So all the wiring will be super neat, hidden away, kind of running right around the outside. How do I get power up to the roof rack? Okay, so that is another challenge. What I've done for my light bar is there's actually a wire. It's actually on the other side. Let's have a quick look. There is actually a wire that comes from a relay across and then up underneath this little seal here, and you can just see it there. It tucks up behind and then goes into the light bar. And on the other side I've got something very similar, which is a black wire, I think it is. I think there's one or two black wires. One black wire goes up there, goes all the way down. You can just about see it just there. And now these covers here actually lift off. It's quite convenient, and there's a nice big void under there. So there's the earth connection there, which was for the other strobes, which I'll be removing, and that just kind of slots back in like that. Okay, so it's quite a nice little cutout in there for hiding connections, bullet connectors, things like that. So what I'll do is I will replace that wire there. I'll leave the light bar exactly as it is, don't want to disturb that, that's a separate feed. But this one here I'm going to replace with some sort of thin 3-core cable, probably this sort of rubber, bought a reel of like pond cable. Okay, so this stuff here, this is pond cable, which is quite nice because it's 3-core, I don't know what the current rating is, but we don't need huge current. These are LED lights that I'm going to be running, and this is nice rubber coated, waterproof and very flexible as well. Okay, so it is mains cable, but that's fine. It's just 3-core cable. Okay, and it's also quite small diameter. Okay, so that should just about fit under here, under that seal, and into that little gutter along there. Now I don't know yet if I'm going to sort of take it up here, like behind there, and up and across here, and then all the way round to the back. So do the front lights first and then sort of round or down this side, or down one of the sides to another junction box at the back, or I can take it all the way along and up behind here, and then up like I've done already, like I've done before for the rear strobes. Okay, so I'm not sure which way I'll do it, but what I've done is put these kind of connectors here onto every single light. Okay, so we've got the 4 strobes, and then we've got these 2 floodlights. Okay, so I've put those on. The other half here could either be onto a cable that then goes into where's the junction box gone? Here, into this junction box sort of via a cable gland in the side, or I could even possibly sort of mount that into the side, so it's got a kind of a nice panel mounted, threaded sort of panel mounted socket there. Not sure yet. I guess it depends if these are long enough to reach the side of this. If that is going in the middle of the back of the roof rack, I don't think those are going to be long enough. Okay, so what I've also done is, so the brackets, so the good thing about these and these, I mean, these come with painted black brackets. These here come with stainless steel brackets. These are Wow LED, who are a very good eBay seller for lights, light bars, spotlights, all sorts of things like that. Good quality, heavy metal, solid construction, and a nice stainless bracket and stainless steel bolts as well. Only issue is they scrimped a bit on the length of the wire. So the bolts that come with them are very, very short. Okay, so they're really sort of long enough to mount into a you know, a panel or something like that, or some sort of other bracket, thin piece of metal. So not long enough to go through a 40mm aluminium tube. So I've bought some longer stainless bolts. Okay, so I've got 2 of these. Had to go for this sort of hex head rather than, well, you know, sort of standard head rather than like a dome hex Allen key head, because it's got these little kind of things here that it like locks into. Okay, so that luckily is the right size. That kind of locks in, and that's an M10 partially threaded stainless bolt, which I think is 50mm long. I think I went for. So that will go up here. Now I've got a couple of holes drilled, but I need to sort of possibly re-drill the holes. They're not big enough at the moment, but I did have some old work lights on here, cheapy ones. The brackets all went rusty. They're pretty horrible, really. So I'm going to get rid of those and then put the nice Wow LED ones on. But that will bolt through like that. And that's then long enough to put a nylock nut, stainless nylock nut on the other side. Why am I bolting here and not here? Because the lights may need to be angled downwards slightly to shine down behind the car. Okay, so if I bolt it here, then they're going to be pointing slightly upwards, which is not what I want. The strobes, I can mount those from the top like I did at the front. Okay, so I've got a hole here. I don't think that's in the right place though, because it's very near the edge of the roof rack. I don't know, we'll see. Let's get the work lights fitted first, and then try and put the strobes as close as possible to the work lights. Okay, so that's the plan. I now need to get the drill out and start attaching the various lights, and then I can wire them up and wire up the junction boxes and make everything neat, and then run this wire down to feed everything. And once all the lights are done and working, I can then look at sort of fitting other things in here, like jerry cans and bits and bobs like that. Now I've got a couple of other assorted goodies here. So this is my front runner box. It's just a black plastic box. A lot of 4x4 owners use these. Other brands are available. Okay, so there's sort of terra firma and things like that. I've actually seen these boxes branded with other names. It might have been terra firma, it might have been somebody else, but whoever makes these boxes sells them to front runner and other companies as well, so you may have one of these with a different logo on it. Okay, but it's just a nice black sort of rugged storage box. Now when I bought this at the Peterborough LRO Land Rover Owner International show, I bought various hardware to go with it. There's a seal there, I think that is, and then we've got kind of like clamps and nice sort of lockable clasps or whatever these are. Yeah, don't really know. I haven't tried fitting it to the roof, but the salesman who saw me coming said that these were needed in order to kind of lock that down to a roof rack and allow you to put a padlock on it, of course, because this has just got these plastic kind of things here which are not secure at all. So if I'm keeping a load of expensive recovery gear in there, I do want to be able to lock it. Okay, and that's what this is all about. The salesman also said that I would benefit from one of these. Okay, now this is a spare wheel mount. Okay, so it's got a sort of threaded rod and assorted bits of metalwork, which the idea is that it will sort of go through the centre of a spare wheel, a bit like the one does under the boot floor. It goes through the centre of the spare wheel, rather than sort of strapping the wheel down with a load of straps. You can actually kind of screw it down to the roof rack, okay, using these parts here. Okay, so again, I've not tried these yet. I've no idea how it all goes. I think there's some instructions in there somewhere. So that's spare wheel. That and that are the box. And I've also bought, and I haven't got them here because they're actually in my loft at the moment, but I've got two nice 10-litre red jerry cans with the sort of cradle, the cages that go with them, the lockable cages. Okay, they are can't remember who makes them. They're beginning with W. I'll put it at the bottom of the screen, but they're the really sort of good quality jerry cans. Okay, so I bought the sort of spout that goes with that as well, and they'll be put up here. Okay, so we'll have the black box with the jerry cans. We've got the lights, spare wheel, mudboard spade. Yeah, it's starting to sound a little bit like the 4x4 in a certain Will Smith film. It's called I Am Legend. It's got Will Smith in it, and he drives, I think it's a Ford like Ranger or Explorer. I don't know my Fords. If you know, comment below, tell me what his Ford is. I have no intention of buying one, but it looks pretty cool. Okay, so he's got the roof rack with the jerry cans and the lights and everything on it, and yeah, that's what I want mine to look like. Okay, so yeah, it will look better on a Land Rover, actually, wouldn't it? Definitely better on a Land Rover. Okay, so let's have a quick look at the wiring diagram. I've got my whiteboard out now and a selection of coloured markers here. I'm just going to let me just zoom a little bit in. There we go, that's better. Right, so let's very quickly look at how I'm going to be connecting these lights up. So let's just draw a rectangle there. That is the roof rack, that's the front of the car, and that's the rear of the car. Okay, so we have, let's use some different colours here. We've got amber strobes, okay, so we've got an orange pen here for, so on the front we have a sort of block shaped amber strobe, and the same on the back. And then we've got two work lights now. What colour shall I use? I'll just use yellow, okay, for the work lights. So so there's a work light on each side there. So wiring up, let's look at positive first. So we are going to come all the way down from the engine bay. This is the amber strobe feed. Okay, so I could take that up to the front, or I can go further along and take it up to the rear. I haven't quite decided which way to do it yet, but there is a good reason for going to the rear, and I will explain that very shortly. Okay, so that's the amber strobe feed. Let's do let's use green for our work light. Okay, so this is our work light feed, also coming up here, and use blue. Blue is the ground at 0 volts engine body car chassis ground. Okay, so those are the three cores that are going to come up in the cable from the engine bay. Okay, so we've got the amber strobe feed and the work light feed plus a ground as well. Now I could ground locally, okay, so I could use one of the bolts that secure the factory roof rails down. That has worked in the past. I'm currently doing that for my roof light bar. It works fine, okay, but I have had issues with radio interference and things like that. Okay, so those ground connections aren't that reliable. Okay, so I thought, seeing as I'm going to run this cable all the way down and then through the bulkhead and then up the A-pillar and up to the interior light panel, I'll pick up a ground from there. Okay, so then the whole thing is kind of contained. All the wires necessary to run these new lights is in one 3-core cable. Okay, I'll leave the light bar exactly as it is. That's working, I won't touch that, but I'm not going to try and ground through one of the sort of feet on the roof rails. Okay, so how are we going to connect this up? So we need some junction boxes. All right, so there's going to be a junction box at the front. I'll draw it quite large for now, and there's going to be a junction box at the back, somewhere at the back. Okay, so the one at the front will be underneath that kind of slopey wind deflector thing. The one at the back will be either between the bars or sort of vertically on the back of the roof rack. I haven't worked that out yet. So let's just have a look at these. So I could take the cable up here into here, and then we've got now I'm not going to show all the kind of connections, cable joints inside, but we've got then sort of we've got then feeds to the amber strobes. Okay, and obviously this wire will come out this side of the junction box. Just draw it like that for now. Okay, and let's show the ground. So the ground would come up in, and that would go to each of these lights as well. Okay, so let's just sort of do that. Okay, and there is also there are actually two other wires on the amber strobe lights. Okay, so there is a flash mode light, which I'm not going to connect up sort of throughout the roof rack. I could do that, and I could kind of change the mode of all the lights at the same time if I wanted to. Don't really have enough cores in the cable for that. I'd need 4-core cable, and also once I've set the flash mode by touching that wire briefly to, I think it's to ground on these lights, so sometimes it's ground, sometimes it's positive, these ones are ground, then that flash mode then is set for life. It remembers the mode. I don't need to change that at all. So that wire isn't actually going to be connected up through the connectors. It will just be sort of insulated up out the way. but I will set the flash mode once, and that's it done. The other wire that does need to be connected up, let's use pink for this, is a synchronization wire. Okay, so that sync wire is to synchronize the two lights, so either one flashes then the other, alternating, or they both flash at the same time, but it links the two lights together into a kind of synchronized pattern. Okay, so that's another wire. So I've wired through on these, let's just draw a little kind of circle around on these connectors here, to each light. I have connected those 3 wires. All right, so that's the front. Okay, the work light wire is only needed at the back. So if I bring this cable up here, I've then got to send that one all the way round, or just straight through this junction box and all the way round to the back. Okay, so let's just draw that. Okay, just so we can see what it's like. So that would come in like that, and that would go straight through down to there. We would also need positive for the ambers. Okay, so there's the amber feed for the back, and because we're not doing local earthing, I need the earth wire as well. Now let's just sort of do that like that. Okay, the ground 0 volts ground connection. Okay, so then at the back we've got amber strobe feed, and there, and then the green wire would be our work lights. Okay, so let's just wire that up. Now obviously there would be wires again coming out either side, but just for ease of understanding this diagram, they would be joined inside, and then we have our work lights. Okay, and there will be assorted ground wires for each of these lights. Okay, so let's just, because it's getting a bit crowded over there, let's just show this coming out here. Okay, so the colour of the wires is what's important, not what goes on inside the box. Okay, so that's that. There's also the synchronization, which I'm showing in pink for the ambers. So let's just draw that round here, and I'm just going to do that. Okay, so the pink is the sync between the two. Now, do I want to synchronize all 4? I don't know what would happen. I don't even know if that would work. It might work. I mean, it's supposed to be kind of pairs that are synchronized, as far as I know. If they flash together and you synchronize all 4, then all 4 are going to flash together. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but either way, I can't synchronize front and rear with this setup. There's not enough cores in this wire here. Okay, all 3 are used. So there is something I could do. What I can do is, now if I just get rid of this wire here, okay, and here, and let's just sort of try and kind of neaten this up a little bit here, and then if I take the cable coming up the windscreen, if I take that a bit further along the gutter at the side of the roof to the rear junction box, then what it means, because the rear work lights, the work lights are only at the rear of the car, I don't need this green wire here. I don't need this long one here. So I could use that as a synchronization wire, okay, to link the front and the rear. So this green wire here, carefully erase that for now, could be replaced by a pink synchronization wire. Okay, and oh, actually we want to, let me just do that a little bit better. So that pink wire would then join up with these syncs here. Okay, so that is the plan. That is the plan. That is how I'm going to connect it all up. Okay, so then the front and rear are synchronised. I don't know what effect that will have. We'll find out once I wire it all up. But that is what I'm going to do. There is something that could prevent me doing this, and that is that I might not be able to fit this wire in the gutter all the way along. It's quite narrow. There's plenty of room up here. It seems to sort of get narrower and narrower as you go along, and then there isn't really a widening to sort of bring this wire back out, so I might have to carefully cut away at the plastic or something like that. It's kind of like here it's a rubber flap, and here it's a hard rigid plastic flap, so I might need to just nibble away at that a little bit to get this wire up and over to that junction box. Anyway, that's the wiring lecture done. That is how I'm going to connect it all up. Now I need to get on and get it all wired in. The thread is just coming through, so that's absolutely perfect, and then that bolt head there locks in. That's really solid, really strong, because what I don't want is the lights kind of flopping about or rotating, so that's all nice and tight. Okay, right, let's fit one of the work lights on and just see what it looks like. Okay. Okay, I need to tighten that up, but that's roughly what that will look like, and that's pretty good actually. I like that. And that can then be angled down a bit if necessary. I can always attach some little sort of steadies here. The WOW LED lights have these kind of threaded holes here, which is quite nice, so you can actually panel mount them if you want to, rather than on the bracket. That might be useful for just putting some sort of little 3D printed steady bar or something on there. I don't know. Let's see if I need that. I don't think I will, but it's an option. So, okay, good. So that would go sort of like so. Probably wouldn't go flat back like that, because that'd be pointing very slightly upwards. Probably like so, really, just slightly downwards. Okay, there's the first one bolted in. Okay, so that's looking good. I need to just tie up the cable with a plug on it for now. But that's in there. And if I just push the boot down a bit, that's looking good. I need to just put the other one on the other side. Okay, that's the other light fitted. Let's close the boot and we can have a look, see what that looks like. That's pretty good. I'm happy with that. And next I need to fit the strobe lights next to those work floodlights. I'm probably going to fit them on the outside, only because I want to put the junction box in the middle, and possibly some clamps for putting a spade on the inside. I don't know yet if the spade's going to fit on the front of the roof rack or not, so I just want to kind of keep that area in between fairly clear for now. Also, when the spare wheel is in there, it might be pressed up hard against that centre rear part of the roof rack. So the strobes will go on the outside, that way they're sort of on the corners of the roof rack, making them more visible, and that'll match up nicely with the front, where they're going to go on the corners of the front. Okay, right, it is getting very cold now. Pit lane Kitty's heading in. She's had enough. It's too cold for cats. It's about minus 2 at the moment, and it's going to be -6 later. The sun's gone down. It's been a nice sunny day, actually, quite warm sunshine. As soon as that sun goes, that's it. That's it. Look, it's all frosting up. That's on the inside as well. So, yeah, so until tomorrow. I'll carry on during the day tomorrow. Okay, so here we are the following weekend. It's a lovely sunny day today. very warm for February. So I'm out here and I'm going to be wiring up the lights that I fitted last weekend to my roof rack. So let's do a quick recap of what we've got here. So what I've done is drilled and bolted all of these lights on. So I've bolted these lights at the bottom so that they can be angled downwards slightly, and then these ones here, the strobes, I've actually bolted through the top. Okay, it just didn't seem to work with the bracket going downwards. So they're all bolted in with stainless steel. We've got M8 stainless bolts there, dome-headed bolts with washers and nylock nuts underneath, and then the work lights have M10 bolts with nylocks behind there. Okay. As well as bolting those in with the stainless bolts, I've fitted these nice Knightsbridge 3-pole waterproof connectors to the end of every cable. Okay, so the length of the cables that come with the WOW LED lights is a little on the short side, so I will need to extend them rather than sort of try and use crimps or solder and tape and whatever. I thought I'll put some nice waterproof connectors on here, and then if the light ever fails and I need to swap it for another one, I can just unscrew the connector and swap a light and connect in a new one. Same goes for the strobes. Okay, so we've got 2 connectors here, 2 over there, and then the front lights, if I just move along a bit, the front strobe lights are bolted in there next to this kind of wind deflector sloping sort of panel, and they're sitting quite nicely there. Okay, and they've got the cables with similar connectors on. So that's what things look like from the front. We've got the strobes on the roof rack, and then the 42-inch light bar with my brackets that I make and sell on the ends of that. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to connect up these lights. I used my whiteboard last time to draw out the wiring diagram. I need to have a junction box underneath here, underneath this wind deflector, to connect the front lights, and then a cable going all the way round to another junction box at the back, which I'm actually going to put down between those bars so it sits flush, does not actually sort of intrude into this volume within the roof rack. Okay, so the junction box at the back, originally I was going to put sort of here between these bars, but that was then going to sort of stick into the the inside of the roof rack. When I've got a spare wheel in here, I will need every possible inch of space within here. Okay, so I didn't really want anything kind of sticking into the inside of this roof rack. So by putting the junction box here between these bars and actually pushing it down and kind of screwing it down in somehow, it will actually sit flush. All the cabling can then be sort of run neatly and cable tied underneath the bars and along the bottom of the roof rack on the other side. So the junction box at the back has 6 sort of cable glands on it, and that will allow the wire from this side come in, 4 wires then to the lights, and then the 6th output will come along down here and down and round here and into this sort of gutter channel here, and run all the way along down the side of the windscreen under the seal and into the engine bay. I will then take it through the bulkhead, up inside, up the A-pillar, and up to the interior light panel inside the car, which already has some switches on it. So we've got an amber strobe switch there, illuminated amber light switch, and a blue illuminated switch for enabling the light bar. I'm going to fit a 3rd green illuminated switch into there for the work lights, okay, because they will be wired up on a separate switch, an independent switch. They won't come on with the reverse lights, so there is a danger that I may accidentally leave them on. I don't really want to be driving along with white lights on the back of the car blinding the people behind, so it is important that that switch is an illuminated type to draw my attention to the fact that I've turned those lights on. Let's have a quick look inside the car now. So here's all the stainless steel nuts, bolts, washers, everything that I had to buy to do the actual fitting of the lights. And then we've got the wiring. Okay, so what I've done is during the week I've been wiring up these junction boxes. So this one is the rear box here, so this has one wire that let's see, it goes it'll go the other way around. Okay, so what I'm going to do is actually lay these out on the floor, how they're going to be connected. No, it's a bit sunny, so there is a shadow, so I will move. Okay, so that is the rear junction box. That sits perfectly between two of the bars of the roof rack, and then there's a little hole here where I can put either a very small screw or a cable tie or something, just kind of hold that in down between the bars. The wire here, this one goes off to the front of the car. Okay, so that's the main input which goes down the windscreen through the bulkhead. We've then got work light, amber strobe, work light, amber strobe, and then this one will go to the front of the car to this junction box here. Okay, so this one will mount behind that sort of slopey wind deflector thing, and it's got a longer wire to go all the way round to connect up with that plug there to go to the back. Now the power comes in at the back one, so it's actually really going this way round to the front, and then we've got two little stumpy cables here to feed the amber strobes, because the wires on the amber strobes are fairly long, so these didn't need to be that long. That is that. The only other cable is this one, which is the long one, which will go to the front of the car. Okay, so that goes off down over here along that channel. Somehow I'll get it into that channel, and then just is going to be fed in underneath this seal, this little, so it's not really a seal, it's more just a flap of rubber at the side of the windscreen. Okay, so there is actually room under that to run a fairly chunky wire or thin 3-core cable like this. This cable is pond cable, available from most DIY stores. I chose this because it's rubber coated, so it's nice and flexible, and it's very waterproof as well. It's just nice cable to use, really. It's quite thin as well for 3 cores. It's rated 6 amps, which is plenty for LED lights, and I didn't really want to use sort of normal kind of mains flex, because that can get a bit stiff and a bit brittle. It's not designed really for sort of getting wet and having frost and sunlight and everything else thrown at it. So this cable is nicely weatherproof. Okay, so that is it. That will connect into there, and I need to now fit that to the roof of the car. What I've done inside these boxes is I've actually soldered, so I've done it properly. I've soldered the wires together and put heat shrink on, and the same in there. Now I'm going to have to add a couple of cable ties, I think, just to kind of pack that down a bit, otherwise the lid is going to be sort of bowing upwards, Okay, so I did originally buy some of these. I thought about trying to use these. I've heard good things about these. These are Wago connectors. They make various types, but these ones have sort of like little levers that you can, like, I've never used them before, but apparently you can sort of pull the little levers up, and yeah, I think they are sprung loaded, so you pull the levers up and stick your wires in, and then it sort of joins all 5 of those together. They're available in like 2, 3, 4, 5. I haven't seen the 6-way, but I'm sure you could probably get it if you wanted. Originally I was going to put these inside the boxes, but these junction boxes aren't weatherproof boxes, okay, so they are just little black project boxes. The lid is not a sort of sealed lid, okay, so I can put a smear of sealant around here, but when that's on there, I mean, it's close fitting, and it's, you know, it's not really going to let rain or anything in, but it isn't airtight. Okay, so what I will do is, let's think how this is going to go. If that one's like that, then if any moisture gets in here, it'll sort of, if let's say rain did get in somehow, it would be sort of in there at the bottom, and it would kind of find its way out. Okay, so I don't think I need to put a drain hole or anything in, certainly not on the front one, as the actual sort of connected wires are sort of up at the top of the box. On the back it may need a drain hole because the box is upside down like a dish, so even with that lid there, if I was jet washing the car or something like that, water could get in, so I will make a very small drain hole, just like a little 3mm hole at the bottom, just one hole, just to allow any water out that does get in there. Although again, if I put some sealant around this, I think that should actually remain pretty dry in there. So that's the plan. That is the plan. These I will use another day. Okay, so from what I've heard, these are great for interior car wiring, but not good for exterior. Okay, so right, I'm going to get up the step ladder and get this all fitted in and connected in and cable tied down, and then it's time to power it up and test it and see if I've wired everything up correctly. Okay, I've just realised I've made a mistake. This end on the front box, no problem at all getting a screw in between those 2 cable glands. At the other end, I've put the cable gland in the middle, so I'm not going to be able to put a bolt in there easily unless it was very, very short. Luckily I've got a few of these boxes spare, so what I might do is just quickly drill one again and put the hole sort of here, offset, and then transfer the wires across. Okay, here we are about an hour later, and I've re-drilled another box and transferred everything over. Involved taking all of these connectors off, pulling all the wires back through, drilling the new box, putting the cable glands in, feeding the wires back through, putting all these connectors back on the end. All of that took about an hour. So there is our new box for the front, and I can now easily get a bolt into either end. Exactly the same as it was before. Wiring up here, soldered and heat shrunk. Luckily I didn't have to take that apart. And I'm now going to get up the step ladder and fit this onto the front, connect up the lights, and think about running this wire round the side. Okay, so the front junction box has been connected up. I was not too sure whether I actually need to fit this lid because it's going to go up against the back of this panel, but the panel's slightly curved, so I think it would be better to fit that. Okay, so that would go like that somehow. There it is. And then that will go like so. Difficult to see, but that goes up under there, sort of like that. And two little M4 stainless bolts go through to hold that in. The wires will then be neatened up. I can always shorten these slightly here by undoing the connector and cutting a bit off, but I'll do that later. Oops. Do that later when I've worked out how long the cables need to be sort of secured with cable ties or wiring cradles or something like that. Okay, so I just want to get it connected up, and then I can kind of neaten the wiring up a bit later on. Right, so I need to get two small M4 bolts, or probably M4, M5. It's looking like, yeah, it's probably like 5mm holes, so I'll use M4 and screw those in. Then it's the rear one, and then tidying up the wiring, and that will probably be it for today. The sun is going down. I just want to get the actual roof rack connected up, and then tomorrow I will worry about running this wire down to the engine bay. Okay, so that is the front junction box in. Couldn't really film the actual installation because I couldn't really sort of get my tripod sort of up here really. So I've screwed that in with a couple of little M4 stainless bolts there. I need to really replace these with some nice sort of ideally black dome headed ones, but that's fine. I'll have a look on eBay and see what there is. But for now, that box is in. It was quite fiddly actually it was easy to get the bolts through here, but trying to get that up under here for the nuts, really fiddly. So I put that box in with the lid as well, so that's sort of fairly weatherproof. It's underneath here, so rain's not going to go on it. If any moisture or spray or anything does get in, it's not really going to cause too much of a problem. So right, that's the lights connected. Okay, so I've connected up. You can see underneath here I've put the connector in there, and that one there, and these wires here will be neatened up with some cable ties or something, just to kind of like tie them up out of the way. Just for now, they can just sit like that. And then this one, which I don't really want to run it around the top bar, only because it needs to be down on the bottom bar to go across to the junction box in the middle, so I need to really run it. I can also sort of run it up behind here, so it's pretty out of sight there. So that needs to come round there, and then just kind of run round there. I'm just wondering if it's better on this one or up here, and then sort of down there. Okay, that's looking good. Pleased with that. Okay, quick sit rep. I've cable tied in the front amber strobes. That wire there is a little bit too long, could do with being shortened. This one over here is not too bad. There's the junction box bolted in, and the wires come round down there and underneath here. Okay, so it's sort of slightly hidden behind this bar, up in where this bar meets these, all the way along to here, where we've got our connector here, allowing the front and rear junction boxes to be separated if required, and that goes across, and that is where the junction box is going to go. I've cable tied down inside there to sort of compress everything down so that the lid sits nice and flush. I'm now going to connect up these, okay, with the connectors sort of sitting in this corner here, and get the work lights and amber strobes at the back wired in. I'm losing the light a bit today. It's getting very cold, the sun's going down, so I'm going to get these lights done, and then the long wire I will do either tomorrow or next weekend. Just want to get this box in, get that covered, get everything weatherproof, and then hopefully tomorrow I can test these lights out. Okay, so I'll sort of put the wire on and put some croc clips on and just sort of test them, make sure everything's wired up correctly, and yeah. Right, let me get those connected up, and then that will be it for today. Okay, so that's it for today. Everything's wired in up to this connector here, which is then going to go down to the front. I'll do that tomorrow. So I've put that junction box in. It's just got a couple of cable ties around it at the moment just to hold it in. It sort of wedges quite nicely in between those bars. I need to work out if I'm going to drill and put a very small screw in each end of that box. Everything else is in. These connectors here I'm not totally happy with. Likewise those ones up there. What I might try and do is make some sort of little 3D printed sort of clip that kind of clips around here, and then on the other side it's got like two clips, like C shape. So there's one that goes onto this bar, and then on the other side there's two more to hold these connectors in. I mean, they're just kind of cable tied in at the moment. The wires for the strobes at the back again are a bit long. The fronts weren't too bad. This one over here needs shortening slightly. These are quite long really. They're sort of looping round into the roof rack. But the good thing is that's all now wired in, and the roof rack is completely empty. I could put spare tyres and spare wheels and jerry cans and all sorts in there. There's nothing kind of sticking up or sticking out into the actual space, the load space inside. Right, okay. I'm not quite at the point of testing these. I will do that in the next part of this video. What I'm going to do is connect up very, very carefully, sort of run that wire and just sort of put some croc clips on the end, and just perhaps just do a resistance check just to make sure there's no short circuits or anything else, and then it will be a case of powering it up and seeing what happens. I really hope I've wired it all up right. There was a lot of joints and connections and soldered wires and connected things with multiple wires inside. I just a bit worried that I might have got something wrong somewhere in there, but we shall see. Okay, I'm going to do a quick test of these lights now. I'm going to power up the new strobes and work lights. I've connected up a cable here just into the plug here that goes to the junction box, and what I'm going to do, I'll just run that round to the engine bay. I'm just going to do a very quick test by just connecting 12 volts to this. So I'm going to do the work lights first. So let's carefully connect onto there, and there, right. Oh, we've got some light. Okay, that's looking good. Well, they're quite bright as well. Yeah, maybe they were spotlights instead of floodlights, but that's pretty good actually. That light you can see there is my head torch. I will turn that off. Okay, so there we go. So that's the rear work lights, which are very bright actually, although they are a wide beam. That is a nice wide floodlight beam. See if we can get that to focus. Come on. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is just try the amber strobes. Let's disconnect that from there and go on to this one. Right, oh, okay. Right, so I haven't set the flash mode yet, but they are synchronized. Okay, so the synchronization is working. They're just on the very, very basic flash mode, so I will try and set them onto something a little bit more exciting than just on, off, on, off. Okay, so yeah, you can see round the back, those ones are flashing at exactly the same time as the ones at the front. So that's working well. Okay, let's step back. Have a quick look, turn off the head torch. Right, oh there we go. Yeah, I think if I'm at the side of the road with those on, I think people will be able to see me. So, right, okay. It's getting cold now, so I'm going to disconnect this and go inside and warm up. A successful test of the new lights. Okay, I'm going to leave it there for today. That is the end of part 1 of this video series. I've fitted the lights, I've wired them up and then tested them, and they all work, which is great. In part 2 I will run the wire down the side of the windscreen into the engine bay and then drill through the bulkhead to connect up to the switches on the interior light panel. Once that's done, I will then look at fitting the other accessories to the roof rack, the jerry cans in their cradles, the spare wheel with the clamp, the front runner box, and then if there's room I will fit my mud boards and the spade as well. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I'll see you in part 2. Thank you. Bye.